a year ago you started out with Bentley and McDaniel, and then TJ got hurt, so then it was Bentley and Lavine.
Yeah.
And Bentley went on and became a freshman All-American last year.
Yeah.
Did he surprise you or exceed your expectations last year?
No, actually, he didn't. I brought him in here, and I said this a couple times. I brought him in early into the season, and told him, you have freshman All-American potential. You have potential to be an All-American, and I see it in you. But it's up to you. It's up to me and you to get together and trust each other and believe in each other. And you gotta run through a wall for me, and I gotta run through a wall for you, and we got to have that trust and determination coming into this thing to make that happen. It's going to be hard, and it's going to be a bunch of ups and downs. But, at the end of this thing, when we look back, we ought to look back and say, hey, man, that was a great season, and you were a freshman All-American, and that's exactly what he did. So, no, I don't think he exceeded expectations at all.
Before the Abilene Christian game, I visited with you on the field for a minute, and you said you wanted to play all three guys, Bentley, Lavine, and Siegers, and maybe get Epton in there as well. Why go that route instead of taking the guy who was a freshman All-American last year and just riding him and riding him and riding him?
I think it's a long season, and when you look at it, when you look at the outlook of our season, you kind of start looking at our schedule. I think we're going to have a bunch of games. I think we're going to have, not to look too far ahead, but, it's a physical game. We play a physical position, right? And in our offense, as you saw this week, we incorporate our backs in a lot of different ways. You saw Lavine kind of in the backfield blocking sometimes. You saw him catching passes. You saw Trey out for a pass while Lavine was out for a run. I mean, both of those guys are options to get the ball. So I think we're going to be involved in so much. I think a big importance for us, a big point of emphasis is going to be staying healthy throughout the season and just trusting each other that when it's the other person's time, let that guy get his time. And I think during that game, Duke had some good runs. Bentley had some good runs. I think Trey had some good runs. I think Lavine had some good runs. And I think I rotated them pretty good. And going into the season, as we keep going, I kind of want to keep a good rotation with those guys just because, like I said, it is a long season and play a physical position. So I think we're better if you got other guys that can help take the load off of you on times. I think there's going to be games where you see Bentley gets 20, 30 carries, and he's going to have to be able to take that load. But I think what's going to help him take that load is knowing he has Trey right there standing on the sideline who's just as capable of, taking the load off or also taking 20 carries, And so also I think Bentley's kind of versatility is going to play in a factor. You can line him up at a slot. He was back there on kick return during one of the kick returns. He's going to play some punt returns. So I think the running backs are so involved in every aspect of the game. I think it's going to be a big importance to kind of keep those guys healthy.
Does that make you nervous having your starting tailback back there as a return guy?
No, man, that guy's tough. If you at that time when he was back there you pay attention. When he was back there as the return guy, all three running backs were back there. Siegers was the off returner, and Lavine was the lead fullback. So the back three guys were running backs. So like I said, it's going to be important. Those guys are really important to this team, and it's going to be important to keep those guys healthy.
When you look at an upcoming opponent and start to contribute to the game plan with Coach Riley and Coach Dykes, what do you look for first? Is it all scheme, or do you look at individual personnel?
I try to get a good feel for their players and their skill level, and more than individual talent, just how hard they play. And I think that's a big part. I think that's what jumps out to you early, how hard guys play. When you turn on tape, you can kind of see the level of intensity they play with. You can feel it through the film, and that's kind of what I try to get a feel for before anything. Then kind of schematically, and then you get these scouting reports, and with PFF, all these you find all their individual talent and accolades and what they've been able to accomplish individually.
You wear a lot of hats here. You're the running backs coach, assistant head coach, recruiting coordinator. Is it hard to juggle all those roles at once?
Yes. That's a simple answer. Yes, it is. It's very hard. I think it takes a toll on just like my personal life more than anything. I'm always working. My mom and dad always call me like, Rashad's always working. So I think it takes a toll, but I enjoy it, man. I'm young. I don't have many responsibilities, so my responsibilities are these kids. It's my job. it's SMU, and I live it, I breathe it, I sleep it, I vacation it. I mean, everything I do is involved in some way around this program, and even when it's not, I'm thinking about it. So it's a lot. Yes, it's a lot to answer your question, but I enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot.
All right, you mentioned your mom and dad, and obviously everyone knows your dad was your coach in high school. When did you first think you wanted to get into coaching?
I can't tell you. I never thought. I mean, I knew I had it in me. I knew I had the personality. I've always been kind of a natural leader because of my dad and who he kind of demanded me to be. But I didn't want to coach. I tried for the longest time to kind of avoid it, to stay away from it. I went to school for accounting, and I was in school for business and accounting, and I loved stocks. I loved numbers. I loved business management. That's kind of my thing. And so once I stopped playing football with concussions, I kind of ventured off and started trying to figure out what I wanted to do on the business side. And I was looking into a bunch of business ventures, applying for Fortune 500 companies. I mean, I was doing all this stuff, and Coach Herman actually asked me to come out and help out at practice because at the time I was a receiver and I was kind of the leader, the voice in the receiver room. We had just got a new coach, Darryl Wyatt, who I'd known forever. So I kind of known what he wanted. I knew what he wanted, knew his expectations, and he kind of leaned on me to communicate with guys and kind of just, be that voice in the room. And once I got hurt, he kind of called and asked, hey, will you come in here and help me out with some of these guys? And I said, yeah, I will. And I knew kind of then that was going to be my coaching start, but I tried to ignore it. And I'm thankful for Coach Herman today because I remember I start kind of missing out and start trying to sneak away from it, not wanting to do it. And he called me up to his house at the time in Houston, and he's like, hey, listen, I don't care how much you avoid it, you are going to be a coach. He's like, so you need to let go of all your emotions. You need to put your pride to the side. I know you're angry you can't play football. I know you're kind of feeling sorry for yourself, but I don't care. You're going to be a coach, and if I have to drag you out there every day, if I have to come find you in your class, I will come find you. But you are going to be a coach. And so that's when I kind of started going out there coaching, and he would scream at me every day to make sure I'm coaching, and I just fell in love with it.
Did you agree right away, or did you still try to resist a little bit?
I tried to resist it, but I mean, he was a pushy guy. So, like I said, he kind of dragged me out there, and he made sure I was there every day and made sure I was coaching, and he coached me to coach, and then I fell in love with it. I knew I would, and I ended up falling in love with it. And once I kind of went through that season, I knew this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
How often do you go to your dad for coaching advice, or is that all family conversation and you keep football apart?
Not often, honestly. I've been watching my dad for a long time, and just kind of watching how he does things. And more than I go back to him and ask him questions, I reflect on what he would do in certain situations. And for the most part, I know my dad like the back of my hand, and so I can kind of gauge how he would handle certain situations, or what he would say, or what he would do, or how we would go about it. And there's few instances where we do talk, and I do ask him for advice, and I'll call him up and kind of just feel him out and see what he says and see what his opinion is, and it's good to have because my dad's been around forever. He's seen everything, he's done everything. So 99.9% of the time, he has an answer for any question I got.
Between your time at Houston, Texas, and now here at SMU, you've worked with running backs, receivers, and quarterbacks a little bit.
Yeah.
But obviously you've also developed a reputation as a recruiter.
Yeah.
Which skill is harder to develop, coaching or recruiting?
Recruiting.
Why?
Because it's nonstop and it's flexible. It's always changing. You're a shapeshifter when you're recruiting. So, you got to be yourself as much as you can, but you run into different people. They're from different places. They have different interests, and your job as a recruiter, and I think this is the misconception. Your job as a recruiter is to appeal to them, right? To relate to them and try to figure out what you guys have in common, or kind of try to figure out how you guys can get on the same page, things you guys can talk about, things you guys can laugh about, things you guys both find interest in. And you know, you never know what that might be. So you got to be able to be well versed in a lot of different things. Where it's like coaching, I feel like coaches are born to coach a lot of times. You know, you're born to coach. You're born leader. You're kind of born being vocal, and if that's something you can't do, you struggle with, and you're gonna have a hard time in this business. So I think recruiting is kind of a little bit hard. I think even before you go ask my friends and everybody I grew up with, even before I was a coach, I was always coaching everybody, telling everybody what to do, telling everybody where to line up, telling everybody what they were supposed to be doing, how they messed up, and so I think I always had the coach in me. I think recruiting comes natural to me, but I think it also can be hard. And it's a full-time job. There's no vacation. When football season ends, guess what? Recruiting's still going on, and so it's.
All right, you referred to that sort of shape-shifting approach. When you first approach a player that you don't already know, what's the first thing you're selling? Is it yourself or Coach Dykes or SMU? How do you open those conversations?
I don't sell. Like, that's the biggest thing. Like, that's the red flag work to me when I hear somebody say selling, because if you needed a pen right now and I had a pen on my desk, I wouldn't have to sell it to you. You know what I'm saying? People need things, and people gravitate to certain things. People have certain things that they might necessarily need in their life, or, you know, something you can help them with, or, you know, something you guys can have in common that you might can help them grow with. And that's what I try to find more than anything. How can I be a benefit to you? How can I benefit you? So it's not, when I come in a kid's life, I try to get to know the kid, and then once I get to know him, I ask myself, how can I help this kid? Not how can I bring this kid to SMU, not how can I sign this kid, not how can I help this kid be a better him. And I think that's what's important. I think that's how I'm able to build these relationships, and I think that's why these kids trust me so much. And you heard Jahari tell a story about how when we was at Texas, I was recruiting him and had him committed to Texas, and it wasn't a coincidence. As soon as he got in the portal and I hit him up, he was like, SMU became an immediate favorite school. Was just because we had a relationship where it wasn't necessarily, you know, how can I sell you on something? It's more of how can I help you. And then once you have that relationship with somebody, most of the time they naturally want to help you back. So it's like, hey, how can I help you? And now it's like, Coach, how can I help you? It's like, and we have that relationship, and it usually, sometimes it works out where they come to school here, sometimes it doesn't. But, you know, relationships are important to me, and I think relationships rule the world. So I think there's nothing better to have with somebody than a relationship. And I think selling, if I sell you something, it's not a relationship. You know, you're getting something out of it, I get something out of it, we go our ways at the end of the day. I think when you have a relationship with somebody, it's more into it. You know, you pour more into it, and it means more. And I think that's kind of where my success has been, and how I've been able to kind of get all these kids on board and get all these kids to trust me.
You also have to have relationships with high school coaches. What's it like when you walk into Duncanville? You know everybody there, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, it's like walking into your house. I mean, it's like walking into home. I mean, I've known their assistant head coach, Ray, my whole life. My dad has a bunch of new coaches, so it's not just, I'm still getting to know some of those guys, but I mean, still like walking into home. I mean, my dad's there. I know all those players. I've been watching all those players since elementary school, Pop Warner, middle school. So, like I said, it's just a lot of familiarity with it.
Your dad has to keep hiring new assistants because obviously with his success at Duncanville, other schools come calling for his guys.
Yes.
So do you automatically have that built-in comfort level with all of those guys when they go to other schools?
Yes, I do, and that's the biggest help. I'm probably more comfortable at South Oak Cliff than I am Duncanville, you know, and it's just because,
Really?
yeah, I mean, my dad's at Duncanville, and you know, my dad's my dad, and I'm comfortable there, but like you said, there's a bunch of new coaches. I mean, South Oak Cliff's head coach was my DC in high school. His assistant head coach was my linebacker, who was my teammate. Like I said, all those coaches at some point were on my dad's staff, because most of the time when these coaches leave my dad's staff, they hire other coaches from his staff or from that same tree. And so most of these coaches, like at Skyline, for example, I'm so comfortable there. Their head coach was my offense coordinator. Their offense coordinator was the running back in my backfield, so he was our starting running back. Their DC or their linebacker coach was our starting linebacker. The quarterback's coach was my quarterback. So, you know what I'm saying? Another one of the guys calling plays was our other linebacker. So, I mean, I walk into schools like Skyline, and it's a high school family reunion. I mean, it's a high school reunion.
When you recruit a running back, does Rashad Samples, the recruiting coordinator, ever look at a guy differently than Rashad Samples, the running backs coach?
I think there's two parts to that. I think I kind of get to know the kid first, and I kind of look at him as the recruiting coordinator. But I think it ends up being all in one. I think a big part of running back position in football are intangibles, and I talk about intangibles all the time, or the things you can't coach, the things people have inside you, the things these players have inside of them, the things you can't see. And I think, I talk to Tyler Lavine. I talk to people about Tyler Lavine all the time. That kid. You look at the kid and you might think, hey, he's average running back, but he's successful at a high level at a school that we play offense at a high level here, and he's successful in this offense. He's a major part in this offense. He's probably top 3 most important people on this offense just because he can wear so many hats. And all that is based off of what's inside of that kid, what beats inside of his chest. And you look at a kid's film and you can't tell that. You don't know what beats inside of a kid's chest, but you get to know the kid, you're around the kid. You care about the kid cares about you. You kind of start seeing that thing beat, and you kind of start watching him play and seeing what kind of kid he is, what kind of character he has, what kind of toughness, heart, perseverance, all these things that he has, and that's what makes him the player that he is, So I think getting to know the kid is really important.
All right, so one of the guys that you're not getting to know, you already knew Trey Siegers before he got here. But he's a new guy in your room.
Yeah.
You're going against his old team this week. What do you expect his emotions and energy to be like this week? And do you have to help him at all in terms of treating it like just another game or anything like that?
I want him to practice like it's another game, but I know how he feels, and I think emotions are good. I think there's a misconception that emotions are bad. I think you have to control your emotions, but I think emotions are good. I think emotions make us react. Emotions make us who we are. So I want him to have that kind of rage towards this game, but I want him to go about the approach the same way, right? Obviously, when he gets that ball, he's going to line up and he's going to see his old school there. He's going to run. He's going to feel it is another game, right? But I do want him to kind of have a little emotion towards this game and play with that emotion. I want him to use that emotion. I want him to bottle that emotion up and let it go on the field. And so I think I probably will have to, throughout the week, just kind of help him control and bottle that emotion, that it's not about UNT. It's not about UNT. But once we go on the field and he sees UNT, I want him to use that emotion to his advantage and play with it.
Obviously, beyond their size and speed and tackles and all that, he knows all those guys on the North Texas defense.
Yeah.
How much will you and Coach Riley rely on him for extra scouting insight when you put together your game plan?
Well, I think those guys on film speak for themselves, and we played those guys, so we're pretty familiar with those guys also. They have a Phil Bennett, defense coordinator now, so they're kind of doing some different things that I don't know if he was aware of. And so, I mean, we'll maybe use them a little bit, but I think we're going to be confident in our offensive scheme and how we attack people and how we want to attack people and how we plan on attacking people, and I think we'll be fine. I don't think we'll need too much from them.